Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're excited to have our very own Will Mercado, and he is one of our senior application consultants here at Inovia Consulting. Will is going to be presenting on cash management, making, receiving payments, and reconciling the bank. And I know you're all eager to get started with the presentation, so before I pass it over to Will, I just want to remind you that we are recording this webinar and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And if you do have any questions during our presentation, please feel free to type them into the questions box in the webinar control panel, and we will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. So now I'm going to pass it on over to Will to kick off our presentation.
Hello all, how you guys doing? Thank you for attending. Like Angie mentioned, we're going to be going over making and receiving payments and reconciling the bank account. Okay. In that, I'm going to be just showing you several ways of how those different functions can be done in Business Central. As Angie was saying, my name is Will Mercado. I'm a senior application consultant here at Inovia. I've been with Inovia for since December, so 6 months. Prior to that, I've been working with Microsoft Dynamics for the past 17 years. So I've worked with all the different versions of the product back from when it was called Dynamics Nav, before that just Navision. So I've got some experience with the product. This is for today's agenda, the things that I want to be covering with you guys. We're going to look at on the receivable side, a newer feature that they have in Business Central called registered customer payments. Before that, I'll show you a quick setup that has to be done in order to use that functionality. Then I'll show you some of the good old-fashioned ways, the cash receipt journal and the deposits functionality. Then we'll move into the payables, and we'll look at the payment journal, the different types of payments that you can make there. All right, single payments, payments to multiple vendors, check printing, manual checks, and exporting for EFT. Okay. And then finally, we'll get into the bank reconciliations. Again, there's some different options with that. So I'm going to show you the very simple bank rec where you're not importing any transactions from your bank. You're just matching up. Excuse me. Apologize. I do have a little bit of a sore throat. So I'll be showing you the simpler way of bank rec where you are just matching up to your some sort of bank reconciliation that you receive from your bank statement. And then I'll show you the two newer methods where you're reconciling using an import, where you're importing an electronic file or some sort of file that you're able to download from your bank. And then finally, the payment reconciliation. This is the newest method, the payment reconciliation journal. Okay, so I'll show you all that. Right, so let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start off. We're going to start off with on the receivable side of things. Okay, and we're going to start off with that setup that I was talking about. So I'm going to call here into register. Okay, and we're going to go into register customer payments. Okay, now there's a couple ways that you can do this register customer payments. All right, one is by going to this page here that I've just opened up, and in here, excuse me, you'll notice that you get all of your customers displayed in here. Okay, so I'm going to sort this, and here you can see all the entries that are open for all of my different customers. Now, if you wanted to just focus on one particular customer, you could also go to that customer record. All right, so you go to your customer list, and give me one moment. Just make this a little bigger. Okay, you go to your customer list, and then from here, either from the customer list or from the customer record, you can then register customer payments. Okay, so for example, if I click here, it's going to take me to the same page. The difference is here now it's filtered for that particular customer. Okay, now I mentioned that there is a setup that needs to be done. And so let me take you to that. Excuse me. Go. Here it is. Okay. So if you're in the register customer payments window and you go to actions, setup, and setup, it's going to open up this page here called payment registration setup. And all you're doing here is you're determining when I register these payments, when I process them, what journal do I want those payments to get transferred to? Okay, so this page is basically just allowing you to manipulate the information, but at the end of the day, it transfers it to a journal and then processes it through that journal. And so that's what you're doing here is you're identifying what journal it is that you want to use. Okay, so in my situation, I've created this journal called payments. I'm going to this specific batch called payment reg. And then here I've selected what is my balancing account. So I'm selecting my bank account and the bank account that I am wanting those payments to be paid against. Okay. So that's what this payment registration setup is. Now, you can't have different payment registration setups for different customers. So if you wanted, for whatever reason, you have some customer payments that you want to go to a different account, you can have different payment registration setups per customer. Okay. You have these. You also have these two options here. Use this account as default, and automatically fill date received. The automatically fill date received, you'll see in a moment what that does. They use this account as default. That just pertains to this bank account and the balancing account being the default for all customers and vendors. If you don't want that to be the case, you uncheck this and then you can do different bank accounts per customer. Okay. All right, so now to show you how this works, once you're in this window that says register customer payments, what this is showing you again is the invoices that you have outstanding for this customer. So in here, I can come over and let's say on this first line, I can just simply check off, hey, I got a payment. I can look at, and when you're doing this is you're comparing this, against your bank, right? Or you're looking at the payments that you've received in your bank account. So in this case, I'm going to say, I got this payment. When I check that, it automatically removes the remaining amount off that line. Excuse me. And I'm going to move my box here. And it shows, and it moves it over to this amount received field. Okay, so now if I check this one off, it goes ahead and amount received field, it fills that in again. Okay, now if you received a partial payment, okay, and let's say they sent you, let's say $20,000, and they said, hey, split that up amongst these two invoices. So you would still check these off, but then in the amount received, you would say, hey, they told me go ahead and do 10,000 over here and 10,000 over here. Okay, so now that puts back a remaining amount for those two invoices, so there will be something left over. And then again, the payment that you're receiving is going to be for a total of $20,000. Okay. Now over here on this external document number field, you can use that to record whether the customer, the customer's check number, if it was a check, if there was some kind of transfer number that you want to record, you would then record that in that external document number. So let's say something like this. Okay. And then finally, once you're ready to process the payment, okay, you come up here to this posting button and you have two options. Okay. Well, you have, as you can see here, several options, but the post payments or post as lump payment. Okay, so if the customer sent you a lump payment of $20,000, then you're going to want to post that as a lump payment. That way, it shows up as a one entry on your bank ledger and one entry on your customer ledger. If you select post payments, then it's going to enter two separate payment entries in both your bank ledger and your customer ledger. So what that means is it's not that it's incorrect. It's just that when you go to do your bank reconciliation, it might make it a little bit more tedious, just because it won't match exactly to what your bank, the way your bank has the payment. Okay. So before posting any of these transactions, you can always run these preview options. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and preview post as a lump payment. You can see here the GL entries that are going to get created, right? So I've got my debit to my bank and my credit to my AR account. Okay. I've got a preview of the customer ledger entry that's going to get created. So like I said, it's one entry for the $20,000. Same here on my bank account ledger entry. It's going to be one entry to my bank account for $20,000. And then finally, here's your detailed customer ledger entries. This is just a breakdown of how those $20,000 are being applied amongst the different invoices that you selected. Okay. So then once you're ready, you can go ahead here and post. I'm going to say post as lump payment. I'm going to say yes. Okay. So it doesn't take you out of here yet. What you can see here now is these are the invoices that are still open for the customer. You'll see now that the two that I applied those partial payments to show a remaining amount of 18,000 and 8,000 respectively. Okay. And once I was ready, I could always come back into my registered customer payments and process some more. Okay. Now that's been posted, just to take a step back and show you the full detail of it. Again, I'm still on that customer. I'm going to go here into the ledger entries. And again, remember, this is where you can see the full history of all the transactions that have occurred with that customer. Give it a moment here. Okay. So now if I look, there is the payment that I just recorded. Okay. And you can see it's one entry. If I come up here, a couple ways, what I want to show you is how you can see what that was applied to. So if I click the information button, this is one way I can do it. I can see here that there are two applied entries. If I click on that, it shows me the two invoices that I applied that payment to. Okay. Another way to do that, if I don't use that information box, is over here. If I click on entry, applied entries, I get the same information here. Okay. And you can also do that vice versa from the invoice itself. So if I were to select, let's see, here's the invoice that I originally had. If I select that and I go entry, applied entries, it shows me the payment. that was applied to. Okay. All right. So that is the register. Okay. Just making sure here. Nothing questions. Okay. So I'm going to show you one more thing here related to that. We're going to go back into register customer payments. And if we were to do it from this screen, all right, the difference would be you can come in here, sort this by your customer, and you can do it all from this one page. So let's say I wanted to record, I got a payment from this user, or from this customer, I got this as well, and then I've got two from here, let's say. Okay. I can also process in this from this page, right? And it would do it for both of those customers. Okay. Another thing that I want to point out that I forgot to mention in the other screen is if your customer, let me find one here that may have one, this one here. So let's say if your customer has a payment discount that is available to them, okay, and the way you can notice that is here, for example, I have this invoice for this customer. Here's the remaining amount, and here's the remaining amount including discount. Okay. Now, in order for that discount to be met, the payment would have to be received on or before this date of 3/5/21. Okay. So if I go to pay this discount, if my date received is on or before this date, it automatically applies that. Okay. If let me try to find one here where the date is a little bit. This one here. So here, my payment discount, I've passed the date, so it didn't offer it to them. But let's say I still want to give them that payment discount. I can go ahead, uncheck that, and extend that payment discount date, let's say to today. Oh no, let me do 02/25/21. Okay, and then extend that payment discount date, and now you'll see that the amount received includes is for the discounted amount versus the full amount. Okay, so you have that option there as well. Okay, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you from here, and I'm going to say post as lump payment again. And again, if I'm doing a single payment, then that's fine. It's just going to do it as a single. But for these two that I've put as together, I got to put the lump payment. And actually, I'm going to put in my external document number. So I'll put over here, we'll put transfer. Over here, we'll put transfer. And we'll say this one was a check. Okay. And did I miss one? Transfer. Okay, so actually it's not going to let me do that. So we would want to, in that case, if you are doing a lump payment from this page, you're going to want to filter. So first we'll come here, we'll select this line. And what we can do is click here on the name. Oops, my bad, sorry. And we'll say filter to this value. There's my addendum. So I'm going to go ahead and post this first. Okay, then I'll clear my filter. And then I'll do the other two that I had. So I was going to do School of Fine Art. and then I can do the postage lump payment. All right. And then if we go out of here, go look at the School of Fine Art, look at the ledger entries. Give that a moment to open. Okay, there is my payment that I just made as a lump sum. I click on the entry and look at my applied entries. There are the two invoices that I just paid. All right. All right, so that is the newest feature for processing customer payments. Now let's look at some of the more traditional ones. Okay, so from here, you can do it again directly from the customer, or you can do it from your just main menu. Okay, so if we're doing it from the main menu, we can just go to our search box and look for cash receipt, and that would be our cash receipt journal. Okay. If you're doing it from the customer, so let's say I'll use this School of Fine Art customer, and I would go up here to process. No, sorry. Where is it? Here we go. Ledger entries. And from the ledger entries, give that a moment. I could process one moment. Sorry, just moved it for me. And where did it go? Sorry. Never mind. I'll get back to that one. But let's go the old-fashioned way here. So we'll go to cash receipt journals. Okay. From the cash receipt journals, we will let me delete this information that I have here. Okay. So we'll start a payment here. We'll enter the date of the payment. Okay. Remember that the posting date and the document date do not necessarily have to be the same. Okay, so the posting date is the day that you want the transaction to post to your bank account, but the document date can be the date on the check or the date on the transfer. Right, that might have been a day or two earlier. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Document type is going to be payment. Here we're going to select the customer that we are receiving a payment from. So I'm going to select the School of Fine Art. Okay, if it's a very simple payment and you have the check in front of you or the transaction in front, the amount in front of you, you can go ahead and put that in here. Okay, so let's say, and you would enter it as a negative. Okay, so let's say if it was $100, I'm going to put that as a very basic example. I'm saying 100. My balancing account would be my bank account, and then the bank account that I am receiving that money against. Okay. Then I can go here to my applies to doc type if I want to apply this to a particular invoice. So I say invoice, and then in the applies to doc number, I can do the drop down, and it'll show me all the open invoices for that customer. Okay. And then move this out of the way. So let's say if I wanted to select this particular invoice, this first one here, just highlight it and click OK. Or if I want to do, let's do the second one, highlight it and click OK. And that's how you would apply to just one invoice. Okay. Now, if you want to apply to multiple invoices, let me show you that. I'm going to clear out the amount. I'm going to clear out my applies to information. And what you can do is, again, you can either enter the amount right? So let's say I'm going to do negative 2,000. Then I can go up to um, this process button and select apply entries. Now that will show me again the invoices that I want to apply to. And if I just go across here, I'm going to apply it entirely to this invoice. Okay. Now to do that, it's very subtle, but there's these three dots up here. You click that, select process, and set applies to ID. You'll see that it takes the document number from the journal, sets it in there. And because my payment was for $2,000, it's going to automatically apply that in full to that amount. Okay. So that's another way to do this. Okay. Now, obviously, if I wanted to apply it to both invoices, I would set applies to ID on both of them. Now, the question here is, all right, how does it know to split up the $2,000? It actually does not. So you have to come over here to the application amount to apply. Sorry, amount to apply. And you tell it how you want to split that up. So in this case, I'm going to say I'll split up 1,000 over here and 1,000 over here. I hit OK. And then when I post this, it will split up the payment amongst those two invoices. Okay. Now the last thing I wanted to show you is if I clear out my amount and let's say instead of filling in the amount, you want the system to give you that amount, right? And that way you can match it up to the payment that you're receiving. You can come in here, hit process, apply entries. Okay, and let me clear this out for a moment. Just so you can see what that would look like. So you come in here, obviously that would not be filled in yet. Okay, so I would come in here and let's say I want to apply it to both of these invoices. So I would highlight those two invoices. And I do that just by clicking my shift and my down arrow. Okay, if you had random invoices, you can do control and then highlight each line. And then I go in here, process, set applies to ID. Now in this case, again, it automatically fills in that you're paying the full amounts. So if that's not the case, you come in here and you say, all right, again, I'm doing 1,000 over here. Oops. 1,000 here, 1,000 over here. And then you hit OK, and it brings that amount into the journal for you. Okay, so either way will work. So then I go ahead and I'm going to post this. And if we go look at one more time, just look at that customer. School of Fine Art. Come on. There's the payment. And again, entry, applied entries. There's the two invoices. Okay. All right, and then the final method, go up here, search box, deposits. And the idea behind this is that it works as a deposit book where you're just speaking, you can have this open throughout the day and you're listing the different deposits that you get. So we come in here, we start a new deposit. Okay, select the bank account that we're depositing into. And now if you're doing it, if you've got a total of checks or deposits that you want to record and you know the amount, you can go ahead and fill that in now, or you can wait till the end and then fill it in, but you will have to fill in this total deposit amount field at some point. Okay. Then you come down to the lines. You select who you're receiving payments from. Now you can see here, it's not only from customers. You can receive, let's say if you're receiving some sort of um, payment from your vendor because you overpaid, or, they're giving you some sort of refund. You can do that. You can do bank transfers as well. Okay. So I'm going to select customer in this case. I'm going to do my account and I'm going to select from, let's do School of Fine Art again. And the functionality here is similar to what we saw in the cash receipt journal. Okay. So here I'm going to enter again the date of when I received that payment. Okay. Over here, the document number. Okay. Let's say if it was a check, you would put the check number. If not, you can put some sort of transfer number. Okay. And then in the credit amount field, you can either go ahead and fill it in, the amount that you received, $4,000, something like that. Or again, you can leave that empty and go up here to functions, apply entries. Did I not put one? Oh, I thought I did. Sorry. Thought I selected my customer. Okay, I can go up here, functions, apply entries. It's going to show me the invoices that are open. Again, I can select multiple invoices by highlighting more than one. I come up here, process, set applies to ID. Again, if I'm doing a partial payment, or if I received a partial payment, I have to edit this amount to apply. If not, I just select both and it fills in the credit amount for me. Okay. And then in here, you can just continue. Let's say I've also received payments from this customer. And this was a check as well. And then I can say I got $2,000 from them. I come back up here and I do functions, apply entries. And I select the invoice that I want to apply that against. And I hit OK. All right. So then at the end, like I said, I do have to fill in my total deposit amount because if not, the system will give me an error when I try to post this. So I can go ahead and put that in there based on this amount here. So 21,984, 21,984.54. If it matches, then I should be fine. And then I can go ahead and post this. Okay. And then that one, if I look quickly, I'll go to my checking account here and I'll look at the ledger entries. And I look across. There are the last two payments that I received. Another thing that you can do is from your bank account, if you look at the history, and we look at deposits, you can see the different deposits that have been posted to the bank. And here's your total deposit amount. If I click on it, it'll open it and I can view the details. All right. All right, so that is what I wanted to show you on the receivable side. So now let's jump over to the payable side. On the payable side, it's a little bit more straightforward. Okay, so we'll go to vendors. And there is some new functionality here as well, similar to what they added on the customer side. If I, let's say, select a vendor and go into that vendor's ledger entries, I can come in here. And I guess maybe they picked one that didn't, oh, it was just very slow. Let me go back in there. Sorry. apologize. I don't know why this is taking so long. There we go. Okay. So from here, from the vendor ledger entries, I can see again, this is where all the transactional history for this vendor is. I can see over here any invoices that are open. So to find out invoices that are open, one, I can see by this remaining amount. Another way is if I look at this open field, that also lets me know that those are open invoices. So from here, similar to what we had on the customer side, we can process a payment. Okay, so from here, we can say create a payment. Okay, here it's going to ask you where did you want to, how do you want to process this payment? So again, you're selecting a payment journal, a batch name, okay, and what bank account you're paying this out of, and what kind of payment that you want to make. Okay, in this case, it's selected a manual check, but you can also select to make a computer check, which is to print out a check, and you have these electronic payment options as well. Okay, so let's actually, I'm going to cancel that and make sure that I'm on a line that has a remaining amount. Yep. Okay, so let's actually pay this one with a computer check. So I go here, process payment, and say computer check, and then I'm going to hit OK. Now what that does, it takes me to the payment journal. Okay, creates a line for that payment to that vendor, brings in the amount of the invoice that I was on, and it should also, if I go up here to apply entries, I can see the invoice that it's being applied to. Okay, now in this case, I have some old information here, so that's why you're seeing this applies to information. But if I go back here to the journal document number, this one here, that's actually the one that's being applied to for this particular payment. So it's this one down here. This is some other stuff that I was working on. Okay. So if I were to post this, oops, sorry, not yet. I forgot this is a computer check. Okay. So the fact that I selected computer check is over here. Bank payment type is computer check, and that means that I need to print this. Okay. So from here, I go here to check, print check. I have to confirm the accounts that I'm paying this out of. So I just enter that again. And then I go ahead and print this. Okay. Now that's going to print to my PDF printer, right? So there's my check. Okay. In this particular format, it looks like I've got stub, check, layout selected. I'm not going to break off into that, but we do have other options. So we have a check, stub, 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 check layouts that can be selected. So this one here is the default one, but there are other ones that are available. Okay, so there, my check is printed now. If I close that, actually I need to print it so that it thinks that I printed it. So give me a moment. Okay, so now it believes that I've printed my check. So I've got my check printed field marked off. Now I can go ahead and post my payment. Okay, if we go back to the vendor, that invoice is no longer remaining. Okay, so similar here, if I wanted to do more than one invoice that I wanted to pay, I can highlight them using my shift and down arrow key or my control and then highlighting the different random invoices that I wanted to select. Let's see if there's any other ones. No, So I'll just select that and show you here. I hit Control, and I go and I select the 2 invoices. Okay. And then again, I would say process, create payment, and that would transfer those 2 over to my payment journal. And so I'll do that real quick so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so it enters it at 1 line. And it actually just did 1. Did I miss something? 1 moment. Let me delete this. And go back here. No, I did that. Let's see, 1 moment. Well, actually, for purposes of time, I'm going to just let you know you can do multiple payments at one shot. Okay. I think for me, I must have done something wrong there, but I'm sorry. For purposes of time, I'm going to proceed. At the end of this, we can ask questions, and you also have my information, so you can reach out to me if you have some further questions on that. Okay. All right. So that is the newest feature of how to process payments directly from the vendor. Okay. The more traditional ways of doing it, okay, is to just use the payment journal. So we'll go here to payment journal. Okay. And here we can do a single entry payment. So if it's a very straightforward payment, we're going to come in here, select who's the vendor that we're paying. And we'll do, let's do Fabricam. Okay. The amount that we want to pay him, and we'll do 200. Okay. The bank account that we are paying out of, and then the bank payment type. Okay. So again, here, if you're doing a printing check, you want to select computer check. If not, if you've already made a check out to them and you just want to record the fact that you did that, you would select manual check. And if it's something that you're going to export to an electronic payment file to send to your bank, you would select electronic payment. Okay. And I'm going to go over that in a moment, but I just want to show you this. So here, let's say we're doing computer check again. I can then go here and apply the entries against an open invoice. So let me remove these apply to IDs. And I'm just going to set it on one of these. Hit OK. Print my check. Check is printed. And then I can post this. Okay. So that's if you're doing just a very simple one payment to one vendor. Okay. Now there is the suggest vendor line. So we're going to go here to prepare. And we'll say suggest vendor payments. So this way, the system can give you suggestions on, hey, here's what you should be paying out. Okay. So in this case, we're going to enter a last payment date. This last payment date is important because the system is going to look for any open invoices or other open entries that I can apply that are open on or before this date. Okay, so we want to use that. If you wanted to find any vendors where you have payment discounts available, you would check that off. If you're using the vendor priority field on your vendors, you can check that off. Okay. This skip exported payments and check other journals, that's more of a safety feature, so you can have that on. And in this case, I'm going to turn my summarize per vendor off because I want to see all the detailed information. Okay, I'm going to have my posting date. And then I'm going to go ahead and select my bank account and the bank that I'm printing this out of. So again, I'm going to select my checking here. And I'm going to do computer check. I hit OK. It pulls all that information. Okay. And in this case, actually, let me run this one more time. So I still had another filter here. I had a filter on my vendor, so let me remove that. I hit OK. And this is what it would look like actually. So here you got all the vendors that you potentially should be paying out. Here's the vendor number. Okay. And then what you can do is you can pick and choose, all right, who it is you want to pay. So I don't want to pay these two. I'm going to highlight and delete it. From this vendor, let's say I don't want to pay this last invoice, so I'm going to delete that. And then I don't want to pay, let's say, any of these other ones. So I'm going to highlight those and delete that. Okay. So I'm going to make payments to these two vendors. Okay. And then over here, I have selected that I'm doing printing checks. So one more time, I go here, I print my checks. And before I do that, one moment, see my document numbers. Yep, okay. So I'm gonna go check, print my checks. One check per vendor per document number. I hit print. And what did I miss here? Hold on, date, times payment. My bank account, computer check. Okay, check, print, bank accounts checking. Not sure why that's giving me that entry, but for purposes of time, again, that would print your checks. Once your checks are printed, then you can go ahead and post them. Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to show you here is how to do or prepare a electronic file for transfer to your bank. Okay, so I'm going to clear out what I have here. Now there is some setup that goes along with this, so let me show you that real quick. I've used this Nod Publishers here as the one vendor that I'm going to use for this electronic funds transfer example. So on the vendor card, okay, you're going to come in here and there's going to be some information that you have to set up. Okay, so I believe it's here and under related vendor bank accounts. Okay, you're going to create a bank account, and this is the bank, where the vendor wants for you to send them their payments. Okay, and you'll need the bank branch number, the bank account number, and a transit number. Okay, you're also going to want to fill in, if you have it, not necessarily that you have the address, but you want to fill in this country region code. Okay, and then finally down here in this transfer section, you want to set the check mark here for use for electronic payment. Okay, now with those setups, once you've created that account, over here on the vendor card, you have this preferred bank account code field, and you're going to want to fill that in with the bank account that you've created for them. Okay, now if they may have more than one account, again, that's where their preferred bank account would come into play as their preferred. Okay, so that's the setup on the customer card. On the bank account card, and I'm going to be using this account here for this purposes, you're going to want to fill in your bank branch and bank account number information. You're going to also want to fill in further down here the country region code, your remittance advice information, and that doesn't have to be EFT. That's what I put on mine, but it can be whatever you want those numbers to be for your Okay, your country export format, which is US in this case. And then over here on the payment export format, you do have to select a method. Okay, in this case, we're going to use this EFT default. Okay, so we select that. Now the options there are some other options that you would use, and that is if you were using, there's a new feature here called AMC banking. And so if you were using that, there is a one set up for that, and that's up here for AMC banking credit transfer. Okay, I'll get into that in a little bit. All right, so you've got that set up. Now, the way this would run is we go back to the payment journal. We're going to do the suggest vendor payments again. In this case, I am going to summarize per vendor. So whenever you're doing these EFT payments, you do have to summarize per vendor. And I am going to set a filter on that specific vendor just because I want to limit it to that one for now. Now, what you could do is if you guys were doing this for all your EFT vendors, you could set up a payment method of EFT, set that on your vendors, and then you can filter by that information. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I get one line for this vendor. If I look at my apply entries, I'll see the invoices that it's suggesting to pay. There they are. Okay. Once I'm ready to export the information, I need to go here to bank, select export. I say okay. Then I'm going to, once that's done, I go here to functions. Sorry, wrong place. Actions, generate EFT file. And hold on a second, I missed something here. And I do have an error here, so let me see what that is. I think it's my date. Let's see what my errors are here. Let me try this one more time. Prepare, suggest vendor payments, and skip exported payments. Let's use the same date. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's the problem here. So it's going to be from my EFT bank account, but it's electronic payment. Okay. Hit OK. Okay. Then we go here to bank export. So when you do that, it's going to print out this remittance advice that you can then send to your customer. That's going to look something like this. It will list out the invoices that you're paying. Okay. So you send that off, print that out. And then once that's exported, then you want to generate the actual EFT file. So you come here, generate EFT file. It shows you a summary of the information that you're about to create in the file. if there, if you had multiple lines that you were paying, you would see them all here, and then you can uncheck any of those if you didn't want to include them for whatever reason. Right? So you see here unmark and mark options. In this case, I'm going to just leave that, and then I'm going to go ahead and generate my EFT file. That generates a file, looks something like this. And again, that's based on that export format that I selected. This is normally a majorly accepted format, but again, we would want to just double check that with your bank and make sure that it fits their what they require. And so then you can transmit this to your bank. You go to your bank site, upload that file to generate these EFT transfers. Okay. All right, and then so that's the different options for payments. And now let's get into reconciliation. So I'm going to fly through this here. So show you first I'm going to go to my general ledger setup. And to use the very traditional old-fashioned one, you would want to uncheck this bank reconciliation with automatic application. So we turn that off, and that will allow us to use the old bank rec. So if we go here and we go to bank account reconciliations, we start a new one. We select the bank account that we are reconciling. Okay, and then in here, you'll see you have different sections for your checks and for deposits and transfers, and then any adjustments that you want to make. So now how do you populate this? Okay, you're going to up here to process, suggest lines, and you're going to tell the system, hey, bring me, you can either, bring checks in and then do those, or do deposits and do them separately. We're going to just go ahead and bring in all the information. I'm going to say both. That goes out, looks through my bank ledger entries, and brings in anything that has not been reconciled. So there I have some checks. If I open my deposits and transfers section, there you can see all the deposits and transfers. Okay. So now what I would do is you'd compare to a statement that you either received, on paper, and then you just go in and mark things off as cleared. Okay. So you can mark them off manually by checking each one of these. Or you also have the option up here to say mark lines as cleared and work your way backwards and just uncheck the things that were not clear. Okay. Now to post this, you do have to enter here on your balance on statement what that was, and there should be no the difference down up here should be 0 before you can post this. Okay. All right, so that's would be the old bank rec way. Okay. Also, if you have adjustments that you need to make, so let's say we receive some bank charges, you would then just enter those over here. Okay, so let's say you got a bank fee, and then you would select where that should be balancing account against. Okay, and you pick whatever account that would be. All right, so that is the old way to do your bank recs. Okay, so now the newer options. We're going to go here back to general. Ledger setup. Turn this back on. Okay, and we're going to go again to the bank reconciliation. I started one here, so I'm going to use this one here. Okay, and in this option, I have the option to import transactions. So I'm going to go process. Sorry, bank, import bank statement. I'm going to choose a file that I want to import. Oops, I selected the wrong one. Give me 1 second. Actually going to switch over here to show you that one. So my home street checking here. So bank rec. Here's one that I had started. And let me clear all these lines out. Okay, so I'm going to go here, import bank statement, choose my file, and there are all my information, right? So here are all the entries that I downloaded from my bank account in a, whatever format file that they provide me. Over here on the right hand side, I will have all my bank account ledger entries that I've already processed. And the system, when you do this import, will automatically match them up for you, okay, based on the dollar amounts. Now, whatever it can't automatically apply, you would then apply yourself, okay? You would match it up and apply yourself. Then once you're ready, you would go ahead and just post this bank reconciliation, okay? Now, for this to work, there was something that I want to show just very quickly, and that is this data exchange definitions. So for that one that I just did, it's one that I created here called home feed. And basically all we do here is we're setting up how those things translate, okay? So the columns that we're getting in the file that we're importing, and then over here, you would set up how those translate to different fields in your journal, okay? Now I have some documentation that I can provide you guys, and also you can reach out to me after this to get some more information on this. All right, and then the last one that I want to show you is the payment reconciliation journal. Now this is the newest feature. I'm going to show it to you on a very high level because it's similar to the one that I just showed you. I don't have all the transactions loaded in here for the system to be able to automatically check that off for me or apply them. So import bank transactions. I select the bank that I'm doing this for. Again, I would select the file that I want to import. It loads it into this window here, and it tells you here in this case nothing was applied, right? But if it finds it, what the system does is as it's importing, it automatically finds both customer and vendor open entries that it can apply these amounts to, and it automatically applies them. So over here on the right hand side, you would be able to see the accounts that it found, if it's a customer or vendor, the account number, and all that information that it was able to match, okay? Now the things that it wasn't able to match, you can come over here and do a manual application for, okay? You can actually teach the system how to, in the future, map these. So you can say map text to account, and you can enter so if I find certain description, you can map that going forward to this customer or a specific vendor or a specific GL account. So when those payments come through, it'll automatically know how to apply that, okay? There are, along with this, what you saw there is something called the application rules, okay? And this is something, now there's some default application rules that the system comes with, but you can also edit these or create new ones. And the way this works is you tell it, all right, these are what I would consider, or what the system would consider high confidence matches. And these are the things that I want you to match on. So did it find a, exact amount? That's a high confidence match. Did you find a party match? a full one, that's a high confidence match. So you have these different options that you can check off. And then that's how you tell the system, or when it does the application, it knows whether it's a high, medium, or low application, a confidence. And back here, you would see that. So over here on this match confidence, it would tell you whether it's high, medium, or low, and you can review all this information before you post it. And then once you're ready, you will go over here to post, and you have the option to post and reconcile. So this feature here allows you to import these transactions, create the entries in the system, and do your reconciliation all in one shot. So it's a really nice, powerful feature. If you don't want to reconcile at this time, you can do post the payments only, and then you can run it. When you run it a second time, you can then reconcile at that time. Okay. I'm sorry that I ran over here. Do we have any questions, Angie?
Thank you, Will. No questions have come through. If anybody
Okay, good.
does have any, please feel free to reach out to your account manager here at Anovia Consulting, and we can address those questions with you. Or you can reach out to Will. He's got his information up on this next slide. You're more than welcome to reach out to him as well also.
Yep. So thank you all again. I'm sorry I went over. I think I tried to fit in a little bit more than extra than I could, but again, reach out to me at any time. I can have some documentation that I can provide, and I can give you some more information as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Will, for presenting. It was very informative. You jam-packed everyone with a lot of knowledge. So I appreciate you taking the time to discuss this topic, and appreciate everyone's patience.
All right. Thank you, Angie.
You're welcome. Thank you. We have started a new round of training workshops for you and your team members to attend. You can visit our training workshop page at anovia.com/workshops for more information and to register for the training workshop that fits your role. And we do have more webinars coming up. Coming up next Tuesday, we have another Anovia employee, Desiree Gagir, who will be presenting on BC item tracking, setup options, gotchas, usage, and traceability. And also next Tuesday in the afternoon, we have Whit Lester from Nav Payroll, who will be presenting on Simple Payroll for Business Central, featuring Primo Payday. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's anovia.com/events. And we do have a podcast going on. If you have not heard of it already, it's called the Anovia Conversation. And we just want to encourage you to listen to the selection that our hosts, Steve Waltz and Jeff Progulski, have provided to us. And you can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page. And that's anovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection and subscribe so you'll get notified when those new episodes air. All right, well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another Anovia webinar. Take care, everyone.